What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something to go back to the shop for or not. What I'm going to be talking about today is Hulk number 1. So Hulk number 1 is a brand new book by Mariko Tamaki, and it's about Jennifer Walters in the aftermath of Civil War II. And it's really dealing not necessarily with her as She-Hulk. It's dealing with her and her mental issues after that whole episode has kind of come and gone. So let's dive into the story. The way that we see Jennifer Walters kind of showing up now is that she's in her apartment. Her apartment's in a little bit of disarray. She hasn't really been on top of things ever since she came out of her coma, and she really isn't who we expect her to be. You know, she's not in the Hulk persona. She's not 7 feet tall and green. And that's a really interesting perspective because a lot of things are set up in her apartment to kind of mirror that personality, because her mirror is actually, you know, a few feet higher than what it would normally be for a human being, and it's very apparent, and that's something that they show in a specific panel. It's just like, stupid mirror, because she is used to being this Hulk persona, but she's not. She is a human at this point in time. And when she leaves, it feels like she hasn't left her apartment for days, possibly even weeks, simply because she's not ready to accept the outside world. And when she gets out into the outside world, she realizes that no one gives a crap about her crap. You know, she's on the subway, she gets completely ignored. She's on the street, she gets completely ignored. She gets drowned out in the chaos and cacophony of New York City. And she gets to her law firm where she's accepted and she's greeted, and everybody's just like, oh my God, you don't look so green, or you're going to be in this form. And she's like, yep, no, that's what I'm going to be. That's how I'm going to be taken care of. It's not really going to be a big deal. Her assistant has already set her up with a client. She goes in there and you see this kind of spider-like lady with dark black eyes, you know, like eyes as black as obsidian. And it's just really kind of funny to see what kind of clientele she's already got on her first day here. And she goes through this concept where she's, you know, we see her as a lawyer, we see her internal struggle, but we also see her as she practices law and how she carries on in her career. And when she's finally finished with that particular client, she goes out and she sees who's next, and it's just a murderer's row of odd-looking individuals, and you get the idea that this is normal for Jennifer, and it's one of the few things that is. After what can only be described as an uneventful first day at her law firm, she makes her way back to her apartment. Unfortunately, she is a bit accosted by an individual that's out there looking to get Jennifer Walters' side of the story. He's not necessarily looking for some sort of tabloid journalism. He's writing a book on trauma. You know, he's trying to provide a report or do research on the things that happened to Jennifer and what kind of caused her to go through the situation. And immediately at the mention of trauma, and specifically at the mention of the name Bruce, her cousin, she starts to get that intense look in her eyes, an intense look that we know is on the verge of transformation kind of system. As he kind of says, you know, like, these things aren't going to go away, Miss Walters. We've got to, you know, you've got to face these things head on. She goes into the elevator, and you get that kind of rippling transformation that's going to almost take her by storm. She crashes her fist into the actual, like, panel for the controls on the elevator. She gets back to her apartment. You see a giant dent in the countertop where she kind of smashed her fist. You see her on the verge of basically transforming into this thing that lacks control, something that she was really known for at that point in time. And immediately, one of the nurses that she was dealing with when she was in her coma, when she was recuperating, had mentioned something about baking videos and cooking videos. So she hops on her YouTube, kind of pops everything over, opens that up, and you see her struggling with the transition. You know, she uses phrases like, when she feels like she's about to transform, it's about like a truck is going to drive through her heart, those kind of things. The physical pain is similar to the emotional pain, and it's tied very much into the personification of the Hulk, which is going to be a really interesting concept. You know, while we do finish off everything with kind of a villainous atmosphere regarding the clientele that she was taking in to begin with, that's not really the main focus. That's going to be kind of like a backstory. The real main focus is going to be on the mental struggle of Jennifer Walters as she moves forward as this Hulk persona in human shape, how she's going to be dealing with those kind of conflicts inside of her. As far as the story goes, I'm really excited about that because I like that kind of introspective look into a particular character. It might not necessarily agree with who she was at some point in time, but it shows a progression and a transition. You know, not everybody can stay the same character for the same period of time. You know, they always have to grow, progress, or change, and sometimes those changes are for the better, and sometimes those changes are for the worse. So this might be considered something like a relapse back into a point where she didn't necessarily have control over herself. And the art really emphasizes that. It's not necessarily the best art that could possibly be in this book, but it's something that when you get that sense of transformation, it gives you that chaotic nature of it at this point in time. It's not controlled. It's not like somebody is just like consciously choosing to become the Hulk. It is like somebody that is, if they lose control, they become them. And it's tied to different emotions. So I feel like this overall book is going to be a really interesting trip into Jennifer Walters' life and her persona as the Hulk. Not as She-Hulk, but giving her the respect as a Hulk that she should deserve. So I highly recommend that you guys go pick up Hulk #1 if you haven't had a chance. And I'm really excited to see where this storyline is going to go forward. That was my review of Hulk #1, but I want to know what you guys thought about that too, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe right there to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows, and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.